and welcome to week 2 of programming level 1. So if you want to follow along, go ahead and pause this video and open up Scratch and create a new program. So this week we will be creating a more interactive two-player game using two sprites controlled by each player in a different set of keys. We'll be revisiting the material that we learned in the previous weeks, using concepts and the basic code of the game. One player will control the butterfly sprite, and another player will be the cat sprite. The objective of the game is the cat sprite to catch or touch the butterfly sprite until the butterfly sprite has 0 lives left. So this week I will be introducing a new concept called broadcasting messages, which is in the events section of Scratch. So broadcasting sends a specific message or trigger that activates a series of code with the matching when I receive message block. This block can be useful in creating games because it can trigger multiple sections of blocks or code when one message is sent. For example, when a player is dead, the message dead can be broadcasted to trigger code that resets the game, such as the original positions of the sprites and the number of lives the players have left. So we will be coding these things in today's lesson. We will also be creating a start page for the game. So this can be whatever you want, but it may be helpful if you explain how the game should be played and the controls, such as the keys that make the sprite move. However, make sure to add text that says start the game by pressing the spacebar. So this is one example of what your start screen could look like. So we are able to code this, these different backdrops and stages, by using a wait until block and the space key press block. So when the flag is clicked, meaning when the game is started, switch the backdrop to welcome, which is that backdrop I just showed you, and wait until the space key is pressed. When the space key is pressed, go ahead and broadcast this start game message and switch the backdrop to this game backdrop, which is the one you see right here. So now we will code the butterfly sprite to move. So we will use the when I receive block and select the start game message. So if you're following along, go ahead and start coding this and use this when I receive start game. And again, this is part of the broadcasting. And by using this, we are able to tell the butterfly sprite to activate when the player presses the space button or when the game is started. And we need a way of keeping track when the butterfly dies, when the game should pause momentarily, so we are going to create a variable called paused and set it to 0. The cat block should be in a certain position at the start of the game, so go ahead and use the go to X block and go to these certain coordinates, which I explained last week. So we will need to use a series of if statements in order to code which keys make the sprite move in certain directions. So when the right arrow is pressed, we need to change the direction by 3 in the X direction, and we need to point 90 degrees, so that way. When the left arrow is pressed, we need to change the X coordinates by -3 and point in the direction of -90. When the up arrow is pressed, change the Y coordinates by 2, and we don't need to point in any direction. After doing this, we need to put them all in a repeat until block in order to make the sprite immovable when the game pauses when the butterfly loses a life. So now we're going to go ahead and code the cat sprite. So we are going to use the when I receive start game message again and select the start game when you use this block. By doing this, we are telling the cat sprite to activate when the player presses the space button when the game is started. So this basically has the same concept as the butterfly. When the D and A are pressed, it's going to change its position. And it also has this repeat until pause. This code here controls the movement of the cat sprite when the player presses the key W to make the cat jump. By doing this, we need to use an if statement with the condition key W pressed. When the cat is jumping, we can change the costume of the cat sprite to a flying position, which you can find in the costume section. Add this into the if statement along with change Y by 90, which makes the cat sprite move upwards by 90 units. If we only use this code, the cat sprite will be stuck in the air, so we need to use a repeat until block that slowly brings the cat sprite downwards. To do this, we can use the condition y position is less than negative 125, which is the original y position of the cat on the ground. We can tell the cat sprite to repeatedly move downwards by negative 5 units until it reaches the ground level. At the start of the game, the butterfly will be resting on the branch that is on the top right corner of the game backdrop, and will start moving freely after it is moved off the branch. So to do this, we need to use code from the sensing category. So when color black is touching brown, black being the color of the butterfly's feet, and brown being the color of the branch under the butterfly. When the butterfly is off the branch, we can code the butterfly to fall until it's controlled by the player to fly upwards. And this is this repeat until code. And again, we're using this y position is less than negative 125. To make the game more interesting and longer, we can give the butterfly more than one life. To do this, create a variable called butterfly lives and set it to 5 or any other number that you want. And this go-to is for the start page. So the butterfly is in the correct position for the start page, by the way. And that's why we need to set the go-to here when the start game is pressed. So now we will code what happens when the cat sprite successfully catches the butterfly. To do this, we will use an if statement that checks if the cat sprite is touching the butterfly sprite. If this statement is true, we can code the cat sprite to indicate this by saying got you, and the butterfly will lose a life, so we can change the variable by butterfly lives to negative 1. Here we will broadcast a message named dead to indicate that the butterfly lost and therefore reset the game. Next, we will code that will be triggered when the message is dead. So we will need to code the butterfly to reset positions so the player can play again until the butterfly has 0 lives. So here's the code that is run when the dead message is broadcasted. So now we can set the variable paused by 1, and you will notice that in many of our blocks of code, we use the repeat until paused equals 1 block. So we can now set the variable to 1, and this indicates to the other blocks of code to stop running until the variable is set back to 0. So do this by using the set pause to 1 block. To reset the butterfly's position, use the coordinates 180, 140. And if the butterfly still has lives, we can code the butterfly to indicate this by using the text code. Start the game again, use the set pause to 0, broadcast start game, and this will restart the game. So this code is not used, but I just added it in there so you could see how this play sound is used in Scratch. So we can go ahead and play the game and see what happens. So as you can see, Butterfly Lives starts to 0. And the start game message is showing the different controls. When you press space, things start to move, and the cat can jump, move around, the butterfly can move, go up and down, and once you catch the butterfly, the cat says got you, and then the butterfly says still alive. And again, this is a 2-player game, so it requires 2 people to control each of the sprites. And as you can see, the butterfly lives decrements every time that the cat catches the butterfly. So this is the activity for week 6. We are going to be adding some enhancements to the butterfly game in order to make the program seem more like a game and more enticing to the player. So we're going to be adding a timer element, winner screen, some sound effects, and that was some of the things that I was showing you. I said that when I added the sound effect just so you could see what it looked like to add it. So you'll be adding that to your code in the activity. There's some power-ups, and then you'll answer some questions regarding your game, and then that's all. So I hope you have fun.